This is Mark Hubbs with Era's Gone Bullet Molds. Today we're going to be taking a look at a new model Army, and it's not one of your common reproductions. It's actually an original that's been refinished and restored to shooting condition. I bought this off of Gun Broker last year, and I think I was the only bidder who realized that it was an original gun. The vendor did not mention that fact, but the markings clearly showed it to me as it was. And it's a fairly early new model Army as they go. This one has a 20,000 range serial number, so it may put it in the first year of production in 1863. I'll tell you a little bit about what had to be done to make it shootable, and then we'll go out to the range and put a few rounds through it. And the bullet that I'm going to choose today is not one of mine that I offer. It's going to be original, or I should say bullets cast from an original Colt mold. I also found an original Colt 6 cavity gang mode last year, and cast beautiful bullets. So I brought a handful of those to the range, and we'll see how it loads and shoots into this old 1863 new model Army. As I mentioned before, the revolver had been refinished, not by me. That's the way I found it when it was listed on Gun Broker. It came with an Uberti cylinder installed, and someone did a pretty good job slicking it up and putting new blue on it. Of course, I would have preferred it not been re-blued. It's hard to see in the photos, but there is just a trace of a U.S. Army cartouche on the bottom of the grip panel. The real problem was with the Uberti cylinder. It was just too small. It left a big cylinder gap and also would not engage the bolt stop and the hand properly. It doesn't lock up at full cock properly, and also will even move. You can rotate it manually at half cock. I found out that Lodgewood Manufacturing had parts made for original revolvers. These came from the C.H. Weiss Company. They were produced back in the 1960s and 70s, and they still had new condition ones in stock. So I ordered a cylinder, nipples, and a cylinder stop. And when I got them, I found out that the cylinder was still wrapped in its original wax paper from 1960. The cylinder fit perfect, but there were still a few issues with lockup and timing. Things I didn't really feel confident doing myself as far as repair work. So I packed it up and sent it to Lodgewood to David Stavlos to do his magic. The bore was pretty rough on this old girl, so I also had him reline the barrel and then ream the chambers to match the groove diameter of the new rifling. Now let's talk a little bit about the bullets we're going to shoot. This is a Colt 6 cavity gang mode. It's marked 44H, which stands for 44 holster, referring to the model 1860 Army. The Army bought several hundred of these when they began taking delivery of the new model 1860 Army in 1861 and 1862. As you can see, the cavities are very sharp, and it makes a nice clean bullet. I don't plan on making a lot of bullets this thing, but I had to have one casting session, and just to make a double handful of them to test. It's a big heavy mold, and that amount of iron holds a lot of heat to the point where even the wooden handles were getting hard to hold on to after a while. You can crank out bullets pretty fast with this thing. And although the Army went to mainly cold-pressed bullets in its arsenals as the war went on, I suspect all the ones like this saw pretty heavy use during the war, and that may be why their survival rate is pretty low. And here are some completed bullets from that casting section. And here's a Colt bullet next to a Johnston & Dow, and you can see they're very similar, except the Johnston & Dow is slightly improved with a longer heel. I think it made it a better bullet for turning into cartridges. Here I am at the range loading the revolver for the first time. I'm using vials that have pre-measured charges of 25 grains. That's the Army service charge, with the Colt bullet on top of it. Rotates easily in the original, and also it loaded very easily, a little bit too easy in my opinion. I found out later that the chambers are 0.452, which is quite a bit bigger than most of the reproductions. Also bigger than other originals for that matter. And I assume that was because the cylinders are reamed to match the new barrel liner. With a .460 bullet, I was still very confident that it would seal properly. I loaded all 6 chambers and then smeared some homemade bullet lube on top of each bullet. All 6 cylinders fired just fine, had no cap jams. I did baby it a little bit, helped it to rotate the cylinder when I felt a little resistance. That's just because I was being cautious with the 160-year-old internals inside the revolver. But overall, it did very well. Of course, you can hear a lot of other shooting in the background. The range was very crowded. It really made making a video difficult. I had to find a less crowded day. And here are the results at 25 yards on a 6-inch shoot and see target. You can see the cluster of 5 rounds on the right side and 1 flyer off to the left. With the first 6 rounds, I'm pretty satisfied with that. Here's a couple of slow motion rounds just for fun. I was surprised at how much vibration there was in my tripod, which was about 4 feet off to the side. I decided to do a chamber full of paper cartridges also, just to see how they did and how they loaded. As suspected, they went in just fine, had no trouble with them at all. I didn't lubricate these ahead of time, so I just left them unlubed just to see what would happen. And we'll see the difference on the target here in a minute. This is how they did it.
Do me a favor. Oh no, I'll let you finish.
And here are the results. I was shooting with a 6 o'clock hold on the black, and you see my point of impact is now higher and to the left, and the spread is almost out to 8 or 9 inches. This may just be a fluke or my poor shooting. I'm not sure if this experiment really tells us anything about lubrication or not. This won't become my go-to revolver for range shooting. I'm just happy to have rescued it and put it back into service. In fact, I probably should name it Lazarus. I made a nice case set for it, and my friend Steve Sheldon laser engraved the top of the box. And this will probably just be a keepsake that I'll pass on to my youngest grandson someday. Well, that was fun. There's no intent to turn this into a competition revolver or even a serious target revolver. It was just fun getting it back up and back to life as a shooter. Maybe I'll go back at another time and really dedicate it to the Johnson & Dow or the Kerr bullet and see how well it does with the modern made bullets in the modern mode, shooting as we'd normally do at the range. But until then, I appreciate you watching. I hope you'll come back and see us. Sorry it's been so long since I posted. I've been dealing with a shoulder injury and the extreme hot weather here in Alabama. I'm hoping it'll break pretty soon. I can make more visits out to the range. Thanks a lot.